welcome all my crafty friends to part 1 of the baby set, where we are going to crochet a baby bonnet, baby booties, and a baby sweater. And just a quick reminder, this is the set we're going to do. All right. And I have worked up a bonnet already. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. And then there's the back of the head. All right, so grab your hooks, grab your yarn, meet me over at the craft table, and we'll get started. Here is a look at the things that we are going to need. First, you'll need the yarn that you have chosen. It does recommend a Bonnet Softy Baby Light worsted weight yarn. I have chosen today to use Bonnet Baby Coordinates. It just happened to be some that I had on my shelf. Just a coincidence that it's both by Bonnet, but it is a let's see here. The colorway is Cotton Candy. It is a light 3 weight yarn. It is machine washable and dryable. It is 71.2% acrylic. It is 25.6% rayon. And it is 3.2% nylon. It is 120 grams, which is 4.25 ounces. And I think that's all we need to know. And I actually purchased this at AC Moore before it was bought out by Michaels. So Michaels does carry the Bonnet Baby Coordinates yarn. I love this yarn. I've done a couple other projects with it along with other yarn as an accent. And so this is the first time I'm working with it as a just the actual yarn itself. So I'm very excited to see how it works up. And of course, looking back at the bonnet, it works up really, really pretty. That is just gorgeous. And as you can see, it's got like this little silver strand running through it. So not only as a lightweight yarn do I have to be careful that I get all of it so I don't separate the yarn, I have to make sure that I'm also grabbing that little silver strip that runs through it so that I don't separate it from the yarn and cause, you know, to have like little snags. But it looks beautiful. All right. So besides your yarn, and as you can see, I've used my yarn winder and I have created a cake. You will need a yarn needle and a pair of scissors. And I'm going to put those to the side for now until we need them. You will need a 3.75 hook. And again, I'm using a Lether Co hook. Isn't that just gorgeous? And then you will need a little bit of ribbon for your bonnet. I've chosen this simple little white ribbon to go with my cotton candy yarn. And if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a slip knot. So if you're a beginner, just wrap that around your finger, wrap it again, take this strand, pull it over, take this strand, pull it over, and then grab that strand and pull it. And there's your slip knot. That is one way to do a slip knot. We are going to start a foundation chain of 16 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. All right, so we have our foundation chain of 16. We are going to single crochet, and remember, this loop on the hook does not count as a chain. So we are going to go into the second chain. So there's 1, 2, and we're going to work a single crochet right into that second chain. And then we're going to work a single crochet in the next chain, and we're going to work single crochets in all of the remaining chains. So at the end of row 1, we will have a total of 15 single crochets. So go ahead and continue working across row 1, working your single crochets, and I will meet you at the end where we will go on to row 2. All right, so when you're at the end of row 1, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and we're going to go right into that first single crochet and work a single crochet. And we're going to single crochet all the way across. We will still have 15 single crochets at the end of our second row. So go ahead and work your 15 single crochets all the way across the second row, and I'll meet you at the very end, and we'll go on to the third row together. And once you get a couple rows worked, it will be easier to do because you'll actually have something more to hold on to. We are now at the end of row 2, and we're going to chain 1 and turn our work to begin row 3. We're going to go right into this first single crochet, and we're going to single crochet into that stitch, and we're going to single crochet again all the way across row 3. You will still have a total of 15 single crochets. The part that you are working on right now is the back of the baby bonnet. This is the part that will be at the back of the head. So go ahead and work your 15 single crochets across row 3. You are then going to chain 1, and you're going to work a total of 18 more rows so that you have a total of 21 rows of 15 single crochets. Remember to chain 1 at the end of the row and turn your work. And so when you get to the end of your 21st row of 15 single crochets, I will meet back up with you there, and I will show you how to finish making the rest of the back of the baby bonnet. So we're at the end of our 21st row. I did put a stitch marker in so I knew what was my right side versus my wrong side. If you did not do that and you're not sure which is the right side, one way to always tell, I'm going to pull my stitch out. Is your foundation tail will always be on the left-hand side, and that's how you'll know the right side of your work. So if you want to take a minute and go ahead and put in a little stitch marker there so you know, you can. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the 22nd row. So if you need to pause and put in your stitch marker, go ahead and do that, and then join us when you are finished. So we're going to chain 1, and now we're going to do what's called a single crochet decrease, and we're going to do that in the first 2 single crochets. So you're going to insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then you're going to insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then between those 2 stitches you'll have 3 loops on the hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and that is a single crochet decrease. Now we're going to single crochet in the next 11 across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And that should leave you 2 stitches on the end, and we're going to do another single crochet decrease in those last 2. So you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, insert your hook into that last single crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And that now actually leaves you with 13 single crochets across row 22. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to do another single crochet decrease across those first 2 stitches. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches. Now we're going to single crochet across the next 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That will leave you 2 stitches remaining, and we're going to do a single crochet decrease there. Pull through all 3 loops, and now you have across row 23 11 single crochets. So we're going to chain 1, and this is the last row of the back portion of our bonnet, and we are going to do a single decrease in these first 2 again. And now we're going to single crochet across the next 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and that's going to leave 2 stitches at the end here, and we're going to do another single crochet decrease, and this is going to leave us with 9 single crochets across row 24. All right, so that's what our piece is starting to look like, and that is the back of our bonnet. So now we're going to start working on the sides and the top. Okay. All right. And we actually need to fasten off our work because we need to turn it where the right side is facing. So go ahead and chain 1. Give yourself a little bit of a tail. Pull that through, secure it down. And now that you have your stitch marker in place so you know what your front side is, go ahead and take a minute and weave in both your ends. I will do one with you. And these are tiny single crochets, so you might have to just wiggle your hook a little bit. But I'm going to go down through those a little bit. I just pulled my yarn off my hook. My needle, I mean. Not good. So I'm just going to do this to fix that. All right. And I always like to weave my ends in on the back side of my work. So see, this is the front side with the stitch marker. And these are tiny little stitches, so you have to kind of wiggle your needle in just up underneath the top parts of those stitches. And again, when you're working with such lightweight yarn, it does require a good bit of patience. All right. And just pull that through. I'm going to skip over the last one I went under and go over it. And then I'm just going to weave right back in through those stitches. Just like that. And then I'm going to cut my tail off and take a minute and go ahead and weave in your foundation tail, and I will meet back with you when you're finished, and we'll begin working on the sides and the top of the bonnet. So now we're going to fasten our yarn again, and we're going to do it with the right side facing. That's why we had to fasten off, because we had the back side facing. So with the right side facing, we're going to attach our yarn in the bottom corner of row 1. And I'm just going to slip stitch my yarn on like that. Okay. All right. And now we're going to work 22 single crochets evenly up the row here. So where we attached our yarn is 1. And you can work your tail in as you go, or you can pull it to the side and weave it in later. Since this is a fine yarn, I'm going to go ahead and weave it in as I go. All right, and so there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the remainder of my tail off here that I weaved in. Put my hook back in. Okay. So now we're up to row 24 here, and we are going to work two single crochet into this first stitch on our 24th row there. So 1 and 2 right into that same stitch. Now we're going to single crochet across the next 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets in this last stitch here. So 1 and 2. And now going back up this side, we're going to work 24 single crochets evenly up this side here. Okay? So go ahead and do that, and I will meet back with you. 1 at the end when you reach here. All right, so when you get back to the end, making that 24th single crochet, this is what your bonnet is going to look like. So it's created a nice little shape for the back of the head. All right, so we're going to turn our work. We now have our back side facing us, and we are going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to skip this first single crochet here, the same one that the chain 3 was made in. And in the next one, we are going to make a V-stitch. And the way that we do that is we're going to double crochet. So skip your first stitch and go into your second stitch and do a double crochet. We're going to chain 1. And then we're going to work a double crochet back into that same stitch that we did the other double crochet in. And that completes your V-stitch. And if you look at it, you can see how it forms a V. Okay? Now we're going to skip the next 3 single crochets. So we're going to skip 1, skip 2, skip 3. And in this one right here, we're going to work a shell stitch. And the way we work a shell stitch is we work 5 double crochets into that one stitch to make a shell stitch. So skipping 1, skipping 2, skipping 3, and we're going to go in here and we're going to work 5 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, and 5. And you've now completed a pretty shell stitch. All right, now we're going to skip 3 and we're going to do a V-stitch in the 4th stitch. So we're going to skip 1, skip 2, skip 3, and right in here we're going to work a V-stitch, and again that's a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And that is another V-stitch. All right. Now we're going to skip 3 more again, and we're going to work a shell stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and again a shell stitch is working 5 double crochets into that same stitch. You can see it's forming the V's and the shell stitches. All right, so we're going to repeat that one more time. We're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work a V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now we're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and right in here we're going to work a shell stitch, which again is 5 double crochets. Oops. 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is looking so nice. So we're going to skip the next 3, coming around the corner here, 1, 2, 3, and right here into this next stitch we're going to work a V-stitch. So do your double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. And we're going to skip 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to do a shell stitch, which is 5 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't think I have all my yarn. All right, so this time working across this corner here, got a little bit of my tail sticking out there. So let's just trim that off. Instead of skipping 3, we're actually going to skip 2. So 1, 2, and in this third one we're going to do our V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. And one more time, we're only going to skip 2 stitches, so 1, 2, and right here in this third one, oops, 1, 2, we'll work a shell stitch. And again, that's 5 double crochets. 4 and 5. Now we're going to go back to skipping 3, so 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work our V-stitch, which is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and we're going to skip 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go right in here and do our shell stitch. That's 5 double crochets. So we're on 4 and 5. Okay. All right. We're going to skip 3 more again. 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th stitch, work a V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and we're going to skip 3 again. 1, 2, 3, work our shell stitch, which is 5 double crochets. We're almost at the end of the row. 2, 3, 4. It's been raining all day and the sun is coming out. I'm sure you can see the change in the lighting. That is the sunshine. All right, we're going to skip 3 again. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do a V-stitch. Oops, it's chain 1. All right, and you should have 2 single crochets left. We're going to skip this one here, which in my case is orange, and in this very last one here, we're just going to work 1 double crochet. And then that brings us back around completely. Okay. And now we're going to go on to row 3 of working the sides and the top. So turn your work and we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And you should be back to working with the front side showing. All right. Now, we are going to go right here into this chain 1 space of the V-stitch, and we're going to work a shell stitch. Okay, so we started with the V-stitch the last time, and this time we're going to start with a shell stitch, and we're going to do it right there in the chain 1 space of our V. So go ahead and work your 5 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so now we're going to go over to our shell stitch here that we made on our previous row, and we're going to count to the 3rd one. 1, 2, 3. That's going to be the one in the middle, and we're going to work a V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. All right, and we're going to do that all the way around. So we're going to come to our next V-stitch, and we're going to work a shell stitch in that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to go to the 3rd stitch of our shell stitch and work a V-stitch. and that's a double, chain 1, double. So go ahead and continue working that all the way around, and I'll meet back up with you when you get to the end here. All right, so when you get down to the last V-stitch and you've worked your last shell in that V-stitch, you've got your 1 stitch here at the top of your chain 3 remaining. You're going to work a double crochet in the top of that chain 3. And then if you'll look, you'll see how your bonnet is starting to take shape, starting to curve in. All right, so turn your work and chain 3. And we're going to begin row 4 of working the sides and the top of the bonnet. And you'll have your wrong side facing out. And we're going to go to that 3rd double crochet, and we're going to work a V-stitch. We're going to go and work a shell stitch into that next V-stitch. And again, that's 5 double crochets. And then we're going to go to the 3rd double crochet and work a V-stitch. And we're going to go to that next V-stitch and work a shell stitch, which is 5 double crochets. And we're going to keep repeating this pattern all the way around, working a V-stitch in the 3rd middle double crochet of our shell stitch, working a shell stitch of 5 double crochets into the center chain 1 space of our V-stitches all the way around. When you get to the last shell, you'll work your last V-stitch in that center 3rd double crochet, and in the very end stitch here, you will work 1 single double crochet. I will meet back with you at the end of round 4. All right, so when you get back down and you've worked the last V-stitch in that last shell stitch, you're going to work a single double crochet in the top of your chain 3. All right, and then you're going to turn. Now you have your right side, your front side facing you again. And we just completed row 4, and we have to go through row 10. So for the next few rows, row 5 through 10, you're going to just continue repeating row 3 and 4. So you're going to chain 3, and in this V-stitch, you're going to work 5 double crochets to create a shell stitch. In the 3rd middle double crochet of the shell stitch, work your V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1 double crochet. Skip to your V-stitch in the center and work a shell. Work over to the 3rd middle double crochet of your shell, work a V-stitch, and continue that all the way around. Then you'll chain 3, and then the next time you will start with a V-stitch in the shell stitch. Excuse me, we've already created the V-stitch. I apologize. You will create the shell stitch, I was right, inside the V-stitch here. And then you'll do your V-stitch, shell stitch, V-stitch, and so forth until you get to the end of row 10. So for the next 6 rows, keep repeating, starting with shell, V, and then the next row, V, shell, next row, shell, V, next row V shell, and so forth until you get to the end of row 10, and I will meet back up with you when you get there. All right, so when you've come to the end of your 10th row of your side and top part of your bonnet, and you've worked your last double crochet, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then we're going to single crochet in every double crochet all the way around till you get back to the end over here. Okay, so we're going to work a single crochet in every double crochet going around. So every double crochet of the shell stitch and every double crochet of the V-stitch, you're going to work one single crochet. So go ahead and work the first row of our edging by putting single crochets in every double crochet of every shell stitch and of every V-stitch. And I will meet you when you get back to the end over here. So we are at the end of that first bit of edging around the front, if you will, and you can see how it's starting to give it that nice little edging. Now we are going to come to the bottom of our chain 3 right here, and we're going to put 3 single crochets right in there. So 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now we're going to work 19 single crochets evenly across this side panel from here to here. After you work 19 single crochets across there, you're going to work 15 single crochets across the back piece here, and then you're going to work 19 single crochets evenly across this last side panel. Then when you get back to where you started, you're going to join with a slip stitch. So go ahead and work your 19 single crochets evenly across here, 15 across the back, 19 across the side here, and slip stitch into the very first one, and I'll meet you there, and we'll go on to row 2 of our edging. All right, so when you have gotten back around and you've joined with a slip stitch, you can see that it has begun to create an entirely nice little edging around the entire bonnet. We're going to chain 3, and we're going to skip this stitch right here because that's where the chain 3 is, and it's counting for a half double crochet for us. We're going to skip this next one, and that chain 3 is counting as a half double crochet and a chain 1. So we're going to skip the next one, and we're going to do a half double crochet. We're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the next stitch and do a half double crochet. We're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and do a half double crochet. We're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and do a half double crochet. Chain 1, oops, skip the next stitch, and do a half double crochet. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, and do a half double crochet. And we're going to keep working that pattern of chain 1, skip a stitch, and do a half double crochet all the way around till we get back to here. Okay, so when you finish this, I'll meet back up with you to finish the last row of our edging. All right, so when you get down to the end there and you have done your last half double crochet, you're going to chain 1 and turn to begin the third and final row of our edging. We are going to slip stitch into that chain 1 space. We are going to slip stitch into the half double crochet. It's so tiny. All right, there we go. Slip stitch into the next chain 1 space, slip stitch into the next half double crochet, slip stitch into the next chain 1 space, slip stitch into the next half double crochet, and we're going to keep doing that all the way around until we get back to here. So all the way around, and I'll meet up with you here. So slip stitch in every chain 1 space and slip stitch in every half double crochet. All right, so when you get down to the end here and you've slip stitched into this last stitch, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to slip stitch 1 more time in that same stitch. And then working across the back side here, we are going to slip stitch in every single crochet across. So just keep working your slip stitches all the way across your single crochets until you get to right here where you began doing your slip stitches, and then slip stitch in here when you get worked all the way around, slip stitch back into that first slip stitch and go ahead and fasten off and weave in your ends, and I'll show you how to put the ribbon in your bonnet. So when you have finished and you've fastened off and you've weaved all your ends in, you can go ahead and take your stitch marker out because we are finished. And now we're going to just weave in our ribbon. I cut a piece about 36 inches long, and we're going to take our hook and we're going to come in between all of these little chain spaces right here. And that's where we're going to pull our ribbon through. There we go. So it's out like that. All right, now go from the top side again and use your hook to pull your ribbon through. Well, I made this look difficult, but it's not. I got caught on one of those little silver threads that I told you about earlier. All right, and now we're going to come and pull this through again. And we're just going to keep weaving that in. And you want to make sure that your ribbon stays straight. You don't want it twisted and curled up. You want to keep it nice and straight. So go ahead and weave your ribbon in all the way around, and then I will meet back with you for us to admire our finished bonnet. All right, and here we go. Here's our ribbon all nicely weaved in, and I've got it all straight, so it's running through there straight. I have my ends pulled so they are about the same length, and that is our finished bonnet. And that is the first part of our baby set. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, be sure and give it a thumbs up. And I look forward to meeting with you next Wednesday to work on the booties. So until then, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, and make your own joyful creations. Have a great week. Bye.